Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 101. In today's episode, we're going to talk about establishing safety goals. This is something that I sit down every year because obviously there's annual goals. Some places choose to do goals on every 3 months or 6 months. Most of the places I've worked have done a annual goal. Luckily, it's been tied right to the brand new year, so folks seem to have a lot more motivation when the year's first starting out, as opposed to all of us have gone to the gym for the first month or two a lot, and then it kind of tapers off, and we find a good pattern after that. So if you can capitalize on that starting off the new year, I have found that really helps too. So, but with safety goals, we hear the 10,000 foot view from the president and vice president of this year we want to have less accidents. Awesome goal, great. But how do we sit down and put that into place then? There's only so much that we actually control out there. It would be awesome if we said the way that we're going to do this is that you don't buy a single thing unless I sit down and I review every purchase and that we're buying the absolute safest thing. That's not realistic. That's not going to happen. And of course, that also doesn't mean that we have the core competency to look at every piece of equipment and just say, well, at least we factored out that part of the equation. Um, and many times it comes down to human behavior also. And it's really hard to blame the person because there's a lot of people who are under stress to get more stuff done faster. Also, every time that somebody is not heard, it reinforces the idea of I can take a shortcut, and it did pay off. So it's really hard in that aspect also. So let's sit down and kind of talk about the things that we can really control, that we can really use. I like to use. Let me go to the next slide here. I like to use things that I can say I'm going to look at the factors that contributed to the injury, and I'm going to eliminate those factors. I'm going to do everything I can to look at reducing those factors out there. If you work at a chemical plant and people aren't handling chemicals properly, there's chemical burns, there's things, you obviously focus on chemical safety, chemical training, um, job hazard analysis. Like really, how do you really go back and look at getting rid of those factors? Um, I worked at one place once, and the president said, "All right, so we had 8 injuries over, if I had to guess, 1,000 people spread among probably 8 plants. I want to see only 7 for this year." Oh, that's awesome and great. I'd like to see 0, you know, but let's sit down and kind of focus on the factors that we're going to contribute to. Um, Whereas when we talk about 0, I like to think that that's a goal that we can achieve over and over again. But I also know that even with achieving 0, there are still factors that are so far out of our control that it's a great goal, but there's going to be times that you don't meet that goal, and it has nothing to do with you. If there's a auto accident on the road, you have a salesperson going from point A to point B, and they're injured in a auto accident. So there's just certain things that are just really hard to like 100% factor out. But let's kind of sit down, and I'm kind of rambling at this point then. So in episode 63, we talked about the leading indicators. What are we going to do on the positive and proactive side? As opposed to in episode 64, we talked about the lagging indicators, which was basically, so now that an accident's happened, well, what do we do in hindsight now? Because now we're going to go back and fix it. And not that that's good too, like we do want to go back and obviously fix something when something happens. Um, but many times you have to do it from um, a non emotional measured aspect because everybody has that knee jerk reaction of, oh, so this happened, I know, we'll put this in place and it's done. You have to sit down and really look at the factors and not say, I did one thing and everybody feels good about it. Well, we probably need to do 4 or 5 things and really kind of look at that culture, really get going. So when we also look at the goals, we want to be specific and ensure that we can measure the goals then. So, as in, if we're going to talk about training, is my training done, and not just done, but is it done on time? So, um, I have worked at places where people have tried to convince me that they literally can't shut down a line because people have to work and produce and all that. And I understand it because there has to be a balance between production and safety. I'd like to think I am the most important person, the most important aspect, but that's just not really happening. But there are things that you can do by saying, well, I'll hold 2 or 3 sessions where the line can continue to run, obviously at reduced levels, but only for an hour here, hour there. You can look at computer-based training. Also not quite the same thing as really doing like the good old-fashioned hands-on. I like to always go back and follow up with folks too. Um, but like all things, if that's kind of the only thing that you're able to do, a lot of us are also tackling multiple plants and multiple things at the same time. So sometimes just given the resources that we have, and we're not getting more from the corporation, we're really doing a great job. But let's really focus on specific and measurable goals. If you're having hand type accidents, so what do we do to eliminate, let's say, a sharp edge on metal and all that kind of stuff? Then, what do we do to get rid of that? It would be awesome if we said, well, we're just going to just give out gloves, and then it's good. Well, all of us are flawed humans. Eventually the gloves wear through. People say I shouldn't have to buy more gloves. They gave you a pair. So it's we have to look at all those things. So at this point, I think I'm just rambling on. So let's just go ahead and conclude this episode. What I did not do on purpose is sit down and say everybody should do these goals, because there's no way that I can say that I know what's best for you out there. You have to sit down, examine what's in your workplace, examine the leadership that's there, and what people are willing to do. Um, I have found, because I've been doing this about 30 years, is that there are times that a site just literally cannot change that fast. And so think about small like increments then when it kind of comes to a culture change that you're doing also. Um, so goals are scary for some people. So I have found the one thing that really helped me out a lot was to be able to talk to the presidents and vice presidents to link safety into performance reviews. So some people thought that that was awesome and great because they they saw it as a 100%. This is a super easy way to help me get more money and promotion and all that. Whereas other people saw it as me holding them back. So there's a lot of different ways out there to look at doing the goals, and then you can't do it all. You got to come up with a way that the people are driving the goals. So if it's you that has to drive every goal and every behavior and everything out there, not that you're not doing a good job, but you are just one person. You can't be everywhere and do everything then. So, okay, so episode 101, safety goals. This was more about the theory as opposed to me telling you exactly what you had to do. So, episode 101 is complete. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. My name is Dr. David Ayers. Have a safe day.